Hey viewers, Skill Overlook here with Tech Geniuses episode number 2. This one is about the Junk and Debris in Neospace deck build. And basically in this episode I'm going to explain to you how the Neospatians are useful, how this deck is really good, and just some interesting little neat combos you can use. Not necessarily game winners on their own, but they're very nice combos, and you'll see why I like this deck. So here we go with Situation A. Okay, Situation A. This isn't necessarily a strategy situation, like halfway through a duel or whatever, but this is just a situation explaining the Neospatian engine in this deck and what all the little creatures can do. So let's start with Cross Porter. Mainly, what he does is you can send a monster you control to the graveyard to special summon a Neospatian from your hand, and then when it is sent to the graveyard, you add one from your deck to your hand, a Neospatian from your deck to your hand. Now, keep in mind that it's an optional effect, so it can miss the timing, so be wary of that. Also, if you use Cross Porter's first effect to send itself to the graveyard, you can't activate the second effect because you'll miss the timing. But this card does go to the graveyard a lot, so you're searching Neospatians a lot. And now let's get into each one individually. Start with Glow Moss. Its effect that if it is attacked or it attacks, your opponent draws a card. If it's a monster, the battle phase ends. If it's a spell, it becomes a direct attack, and if it's a trap, the attacking monster switches to defense. I don't like it because your opponent draws. I mainly use it just for like debris plant, summon a Black Rose or whatever. It's also a plant, so you can use Black Rose's second effect to remove a plant and do shit with that. Dark Panther. This guy is neat. He pretty much takes the name of an opponent's monster and copies its effects till the end of the turn. So, all those big monsters like Chaos Sorcerer, Brionix, Scrap Dragon, you name it. Neospatial Dark Panther can copy them all and use them. So, it's really neat. And since it's dark, it has use for Chaos Sorcerer or Dark Arm Dragon. Neospatian Grand Mold's at 1, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Bounce a monster that it attacks or it's attacked. Just bounces monsters. It's really good, and there's a reason that's at 1. It's the most popular Neospatian, most not widely used. Mostly an anti-meta, but in this deck he fits the theme, so it's good to go. Neospatian Aqua Dolphin. Once per turn you discard a card in your hand. You look at your opponent's hand, pick a monster in it, and if you have a monster on your side of the field that's stronger than the monster you selected from your opponent's hand, it's destroyed and your opponent takes 500 points of damage. Otherwise you take 500 points of damage. I like this card that you can look at your opponent's hand. There's not a whole lot of cards that can do that. Trap Dust Shoot is one of them, but that's pretty much all the main card that's used. But this lets me get an edge on the opponent, letting me know what's in the opponent's hand. Furthermore, it lets me destroy a card and a monster in their hand. And inflict a little bit of damage, which is minor, but I guess it could win games. So this card I like, it's really good. Air Hummingbird, once per turn you can gain 500 life for every card in your opponent's hand. You summon this guy first turn, gaining 2500 life points. Not bad, not bad. Now Convert Contact is the main draw card. You have to control no monsters to activate it. You discard a Neospatian from your hand and you send one from your deck to the graveyard. Then you draw 2. So it thins out your deck before you draw. And 2 cards is always good. So with the Pot of Avarice going around, 3 Convert Contacts and 6 Neospatians in the deck make this card really useful. And it thins out the deck really nicely. Just make sure you have no monsters on the field, otherwise you can't activate it. But other than that, it's a really good card. Next, this card only has 1 use in the deck, and it's tributing Neospatian Glow Moss to summon in Twinkle Moss. He's pretty much the opposite of Glow Moss. When it attacks or is attacked, I draw the card instead, not the opponent, and the same effects, based on monster, spell, or trap. I like this better than the Glow Moss because you draw. And again, it's another way to thin out the deck. So I really like this card. I don't bring it out every game, But if I do, it's just a nice way to draw some cards. Now into situation B. Alright, here's situation B. Now this deck doesn't have many, like, it doesn't have just like one card, like Level Eater or something that can come back and forth and explode. This deck doesn't really have exploding mass special summoning abilities to do like over 8,000 points in one kill. But it does have one little play, it has one play at a time, one summon at a time, and when it's not doing that, it's thinning out the deck. Or it's doing both. So here's a typical example of like a first turn you can do, how you can get rid of some cards in your deck. So you draw a card, you draw Rota, why don't you activate it? So search a warrior, and you search Armageddon Knight, and you summon it. Use its effect, you mill a dark monster from your deck to the graveyard. Oh, look at that, Cross Porter is a dark monster. So you mill it. Its effect activates, it was sent to the graveyard, you can search your deck for a Neospatian. So just search the Glow Moss, since you can use the Breed Dragon with it. Now, you've effectively, with Rota, Armageddon Knight, Cross Porter, adding the Glow Moss to your hand, you took out 3 cards in your deck right away on your first turn, which is not bad. The smaller your deck is, the better, in a sense. Unless it gets too small and then you die of deck death because you're stupid, but otherwise, taking out that many cards on your first turn is pretty good. And when your opponent starts their turn and they have 6 cards in their first turn, you already have a card advantage of 7, which is really good. So, I don't know, you set a card end, and your opponent goes, they draw, they summon something to destroy Armageddon Knight, let's just say, for curiosity's sake, or whatever. They kill it, okay. You draw, yay. Mirror Force. Since you have no cards and no monsters on the field, activate Convert Contact. Send a Glow Moss to the graveyard from your hand. Send another Neospatian away. Dark Panther, sure. And then draw 2 cards. And you have plays now. You can summon Junk Synchron, bring back Cross Porter, do a level 5 Synchro Summon, or Debris Dragon on the Glow Moss, do a level 7 Dragon Synchro. Whatever works. But now you see the thinning capabilities of this deck and the certain plays that the tuners can make. Now onto situation C. Okay, situation C. Not really much of an in-game situation again, but just explaining some of the other tech now that's in the deck. Explaining the 3 big monsters in the deck, which are Gorz, Chaos Sorcerer, and Dark-Armed Dragon. I'll explain why I use them. I use Gorz, firstly because he's dark, which helps with Chaos Sorcerer and Dark-Armed Dragon. And Gorz pretty much is an all-round good card. You can put it in any deck, and it'll do well. Now, let's note that in this deck, there aren't like any level 1 tuners like Spore, Glow Bomb, or even Effect Veil. It'll do a level 8 Synchro with Gorz or the token or whatever's weaker. So this deck can use the deck will use Gorz just pretty much for, defensive to get it out, and then it'll just, attack opponent's monsters with a token and activate other traps in response and do stuff like that. And Gorz is an all-around good card. I mean, it can't be really countered by almost anything because of damage stuff. You can Solemn Warning it, but then your opponent loses 2,000 life points and a Solemn Warning, which they could use on other things. So that's why I like Gorz. Chaos Sorcerer is in here, and I'm thinking of maybe running another one, is because of the light and the dark monsters that are in here. For lights, there's Glow Moss and other, or just Glow Moss. Which is Glow Moss. Yeah, so not only 2 targets really, Chaos Sorcerer in the main deck only has 2 light targets, which are the 2 Glow Mosses, so it might be a little hard to get out. Not particularly. This is because you can get Glow Moss in the graveyard easily. You can use Cross Porter out into your hand, and then it gets to the graveyard somehow. You can even Foolish Burial it. You can do all sorts of crap with it to get it in the graveyard. And then don't forget that some light Synchro monsters are in your extra deck, like Magical Android, Ancient Fairy Dragon, or whatever other light synchros that you want to use. They're there, and Dark's not a problem really at all, because most of the deck is Dark. Junk Synchron, Cross Porter, Armageddon Knight, these things, Dark Panther. Chaos Sorcerer is really easy to get out. And the same with Dad. I mean, 3 Darks in the graveyard, that's very, very easy. Just be careful that you don't end up removing like both Cross Porters or Darkroom Dragon's Effect or anything like that. I mean, remove the Junk Synchrons, the Armageddon Knight, remove these, remove your Synchro monsters, remove even one Porter, but don't remove both Porters. That's the only thing I'd advise with Darkroom Dragon, just don't remove both those Porters. Other than that, it's easy to control the graveyard with to have 3 Darks in it. And there are Synchro monsters too that are dark as well. And that's this episode of Tech Geniuses. And if you have any decks that you want to see on Tech Geniuses and how we can tech them out, just leave comments or whatever. And if you have any advice for the deck at all, just leave a comment, let us know. And thanks for watching.